I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Serious? That email coming up.
Somebody's coming up. Somebody's serious. Somebody's coming up. Somebody's serious. Somebody's coming up.
Hey everybody, Jerry Williams, aka Greater Sapien here. Thanks for stopping by. This is a re-upload of a video originally posted on my primary Greater Sapien channel. This is another installment explaining why I chose to vote for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. Now, some of you are Trump diehards. Hell, you might be Trump dieharders. And this video was not likely going to mean anything to you. But there are likely some people out there who are still kind of on the fence. All politicians are the same, it doesn't matter, nothing changes types. And you might be thinking of sitting this one out. This one is for you because I actually think that it is important that you do participate, because things could change in ways we couldn't imagine in the past. So today I'll be talking about Trump's openly stated aspirations to consolidate extreme power, and why this threat to democracy is another reason I chose to vote for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. If you're undecided about your vote or about voting, this isn't just a choice between two candidates, but a decision about whether our democratic norms survive. Once again, I will break this down into four key areas. Trump's love for dictatorship, the erosion of the rule of law, weaponization of federal power, and rising racism and violence. Let's go. Let's start with the most glaring issue, Trump's desire for absolute power. He's made it abundantly clear, and he's not even trying to hide it. Trump himself said that he would be a dictator on day one of a second presidency. Now, he did say only on day one, and those who defend him say he was just joking. But when asked if he would be a dictator by Sean Hannity, who I'm pretty sure thought it was a softball question, Trump should have just said, no, of course not. Because being a dictator should not be a part of an American president's mindset. But it's part of Trump's. Trump has been constant in his praise for Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, admiring their ability to command absolute loyalty and control. Retired Marine General Mark Kelly recently revealed in an interview with The Atlantic that Trump thought he needed German generals, Hitler's generals, because of the loyalty he felt they had for Hitler. Trump doesn't just admire these dictators, he wants to become one. He literally said at a roundtable event in Florida, as president, you have tremendous, extreme power. You can just say, close the border, and the border's closed. But it's not actually that simple. When he was president the first time, he wanted to do that, but the sensible lawyers around him told him he couldn't. And I don't think he's going to have those lawyers next time around. Voting for Trump is essentially voting for someone who's obsessed with consolidating dictatorial power, but compare that to Kamala Harris, who believes in the balance of power and respects the limitations that come with governing in a democracy. If you value checks and balances, this is a no-brainer. My second concern is Trump's complete disregard for the rule of law. As Sherilyn Ifill, Vernon E. Jordan Endowed Chair in Civil Rights at Howard University, stated in a recent interview, Trump has been on a learning curve about presidential power since he first took office. Initially, when the Mueller report dropped, Trump thought, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to jail. Oh, and he thought that because Russia was actually real. Read the report. But then he learned that as president, he couldn't be prosecuted while in office. Instead of recognizing this as a safeguard of democracy, he used it as a shield to become more outrageous and lawless. He fired his own attorney general, Jeff Sessions, because Sessions recused himself from the Russia investigation. And Trump didn't like that. This is not someone who respects the rule of law. He believes he can manipulate legal institutions to serve his personal interests, and he'll likely push those limits even further in a second term. Harris, on the other hand, has made clear that no one is above the law. Her background as a former prosecutor and attorney general speaks volumes. She understands the importance of legal norms and has worked to uphold them, not break them. Third, Trump has a track record of trying to weaponize federal power. Trump likes to claim he's the greatest victim of the weaponization of the DOJ, when in fact, all those involved in this election, he is the first and largest perpetrator of it. During his first term, there were attempts to use government institutions like the Department of Justice to target political enemies. Trump wanted to use the prosecutorial power of the government purely as a tool, and though he was largely stopped in his first term, my fear is that without resistance from within, he will go all in during the second term. Trump incessantly asked his aides to investigate and prosecute people he perceived as his enemies. He tried to use the DOJ like his personal attack dog. This isn't some conspiracy theory. These are well-documented facts. Trump supporters like to say, well, he said lock Hillary up, but he didn't actually do it. But they forget that he tried. They just didn't find anything. Now, think about what happens if the next time there are no internal checks, no attorneys general with the backbone to stand up to him. Voting for Trump is essentially voting for the breakdown of independent institutions. And that's terrifying. On the other hand, Harris believes in strengthening these institutions to protect, not destroy, democracy. Her respect for the separations of powers is a stark contrast to Trump's blatant disregard for the same. Finally, let's talk about the rising racism and violence during Trump's presidency. Hate crimes surged by 20% under Trump, directly linked to his rhetoric and policies. Trump's dog whistles to white supremacists and his violent racist rhetoric didn't just happen in a vacuum. His infamous stand back and stand by comment during the presidential debate gave tacit approval to violent hate groups. Now, Trump has ratcheted up his explicit racist rhetoric because he sees there are no consequences. His unrestrained comments and actions have emboldened hate groups across the country, and I can't ignore that. Meanwhile, Harris has consistently spoken out against this rising tide of violence and division. She has worked throughout her career to bring people together, fight for civil rights, and condemn hate speech and violent extremism. Okay, let's wrap this up. If you're still undecided about whether to vote for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or to vote at all, consider these points. Trump isn't just another politician with extreme views. He is openly aspiring to dictatorship, as we've seen through his love of authoritarian figures. He wants to tear down the rule of law, as we saw with his attempts to weaponize the DOJ. He has made clear his intention to use federal power to attack political enemies, whether those enemies within are other politicians, the press, or citizens who have the nerve to protest against him. And he has emboldened a dangerous rise in racism and violence in this country. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, offers a path forward for our democracy. She believes in checks and balances, the rule of law, and the importance of independent institutions. She stands for civil rights and equality, and her leadership is a safeguard against the chaos and lawlessness that Trump has promised to deliver. This is why I chose to vote for Harris over Trump. And I hope you'll consider these points when making your decision if you happen to be on the fence. And if you happen to be a die-harder Trump supporter and you've made it this far through the video, you know what? I'm impressed. You might have rage quit once or twice there, but you made it. I hope you learned something. Take care.
And the Shogun is the master. Why don't you sit down and shut up?
I don't. Anybody who wants me to sit down and shut up, come down here and make me. I can't hear you.